One health story we've been keeping an eye on. We're just talking about the rising number of Indian variant cases across the UK.
Yeah, over the weekend, headlines have even suggested our Freedom Day, which is the 21st of June, could be in jeopardy.
So, do we need to worry? No, says an actual expert.
Oh, that's
one of Britain's leading coronavirus specialists, Professor Tim Spector. Tim, it's so good to have you with us. Off the back of Beverly and our last guest, so can we just clear this up? Do, and to what extent, do vaccines stop you passing the virus on?
Vaccines are very effective at both stopping you getting the virus and also reducing the amount of virus that you get so that it's much harder to transmit it in those few people that do get it once they've been vaccinated. And this isn't just guesswork. This is based on studies around the world, including from our own Zoe app that I hope many of the viewers are logging on every day. And we've had over 1 million people log their vaccines and keep telling us about not only side effects, but how effective it is at preventing infections.
But
and
isn't
so,
that... sorry to interrupt.
Really important that to clarify that, you know, they absolutely do work. And that's why people who've been vaccinated, fully vaccinated, really have about 95% protection against this virus. And that is really important for everyone to understand and take away. And therefore, if you're protected against getting it, much less likely to pass it on to anyone else, whether they're patients in a hospital or friends or family. So really important to realise they really do work. It's not a trial. This is, we're talking, you know, hundreds of millions of people around, or billions now across the country. So it's probably been tested pretty much more than most of the vaccines that we have when we go on holiday. So, yeah, really important people realise this. It also prevents you getting long COVID. And I think as younger people are being vaccinated, it's important to realise that if you are unlucky enough to get it, you know, because it doesn't stop it completely, but even then you'll get less symptoms and you're much less likely to get the long-term consequences, long COVID, brain fog, etc., which we've heard so much about.
And when you say young people, what age are you talking about? Because I've got a 16-year-old. Would he be included in that?
Yeah, it's looking like I think vaccines will start to become offered to that group. And as we look at the rates at the moment, we're seeing lots of kids aged 16 getting COVID. And I think the US have already started vaccinating children in that range. And I think we're probably going to start seeing that as well. So, you know, I think kids above 10 are probably going to be considered as adults in the future. If we're going to try and keep this down to reasonable levels and let schools function normally, I think this is going to be really important. So in general, kids get it pretty mildly, asymptomatically, but every now and again, one will get it badly and it can last a long time, and kids can also get long COVID. So I think this is all part of this general strategy as we come out of this. And just to go back to Bev's point again, you know, I'm a doctor and I can't work and see my patients unless I've had a whole series of vaccines. And I think that's completely normal. And I wouldn't want someone looking after me who hadn't also had those precautions if you want to work in the health area.
Yeah. Tim, let's talk about the Indian variant then. We're seeing headlines about the cases rising. Just give us a broad idea as to how concerned we should be about this.
So the last 2 weeks, according to our app and the ONS figures, the cases have risen approximately double. They've gone from about 2,000 per day to 4,000. And that sort of sounds worrying, but you've got to remember we were at 70,000 at the beginning of January. So we still have, we're amongst the lowest rates in Europe, you know, threefold less than France, for example. And so I think we have to look much more closely at the data before we start to panic. Because what we're seeing is that, yes, the Indian variant is taking over from the old one, the Kent variant, and something will take over from the Indian variant in time. This is part of the evolution of the virus. And we're seeing hotspots around the country, definitely where, you know, they're 10 times the average rate. And we know these, we've been talking about them. Places in the northwest, places in the West Midlands and also in Scotland. But what we're not seeing is this generally spreading to the rest of the country. It's not spreading to the south of England, not spreading to London. And these seem to be reasonably isolated episodes at the moment, and also only including young people. So they're driven by young, unvaccinated people. So I know a lot of people are worried if they've been double vaccinated and feel at risk. We haven't seen any change in those figures over 60 nationally at all. So I think we're absolutely right to be vigilant in those areas, and we're absolutely right to keep an eye on this. But let's not take our eye off the context. This is a very small number of people, and we're only getting 100 or so people a day admitted to hospital across the country, which is tiny.
Yeah, and that was what I was going to ask, Tim. Hospitalisations are kind of, I guess, are the key statistic here in many ways, are they?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. As we've been vaccinated, we know that cases themselves don't necessarily translate to hospitalisation. So if you've been vaccinated even once, you're less likely to go to hospital with that infection. And we were getting rates of, tens of thousands of people being admitted every day. So to just have 100 or so is we can cope with those sort of figures. And 7 deaths compared to the 1,500 people who die every day of other causes. Again, really important to put these things in context. So the NHS can cope at the moment. It can cope even if rates probably go 3 times higher. So I don't think we should lose sight of the fact that we do want to get the businesses back and things back to normal steadily. But clearly we do have these problem areas, and it could be that we do need to look after those very local hospitals in case they're in trouble and possibly tweak some of these upcoming regulations. But I think for most people, we should still be fairly relaxed, but it doesn't mean we can give up all the efforts we've made so far.
Professor, I'm so sorry to have to go back to the whole child thing, but I'm so worried about the vaccine myself because I really don't want to get a blood clot. I know that is a big thing. I've been talking about it all the time. I really don't want to get I don't want to get a blood clot. I don't want to die because I'm really enjoying this job and everything. It's absolutely amazing. But so if I'm really worried about myself, I'm even more worried about my son. Can you guarantee he's not going to get ill if he takes that vaccine? Because our children are the most precious things in the world, and I just don't want him to get ill from taking the vaccine if he wasn't really going to get COVID anyway. Do you see what I mean?
Well, I think you can't guarantee anything. It's all about risks. So you're saying you're worried about the vaccine, but your risk if you got COVID is very much more than of any risk of having a blood clot from the vaccine, which is around 1 in 300,000 or something like that. It's really extremely low, maybe 1.5 million. So you're much more likely to get long COVID, be sick for several months if you didn't take the vaccine. And for kids, we're not seeing problems with the vaccine in those countries that are doing it, like the US so far. So it's looking seemingly very safe for kids. There's trials going on, so we'll know more soon. But I think clearly we've got to make this balance between wanting to get schools back to normal, accepting that there's going to be some risk. It's never going to be 100% safe. And we will have to accept that 1 in 500,000 people may have a problem. But that's going to be better than 1 in 100 people having problems. So it's about us discussing these risks more openly with each other and realizing that, COVID isn't going to stop on one day. There isn't going to be like, Independence Day and we wave flags. It's not going to get to COVID zero. We're just going to make sure that it becomes like flu season, cold season. We know what to do when it comes. It goes away. We get booster shots. We accept the various risks of getting it and, some lesser risks of vaccinations in order to carry on a normal life and travel, etc. So I think it's all about getting used to this balance of risks properly and not just getting obsessed, and there's a lot of anti-vaxxer campaigning going on, but I think everyone's got to look at those risks themselves and work it out. But I'm very much pro-vaccine, and I think all of my colleagues are who know about epidemiology and viruses. This is the way to get through this.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you so much.